The European Union appears poised to sanction Iran's Revolutionary Guard over Tehran's deadly crackdown on protests.
We are putting new sanctions on the list, and I also expect that we agree on listing the Iran Revolutionary Guard on the terrorist list. This will put them on the same footing with Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Daesh. If you act as a terrorist, you should also be treated as terrorist.
The sanctions follow US moves and come amid Trump's threats of potential military action against Iran. France, once hesitant over detained citizens, now backs the listing with no impunity for crimes committed.
Cette décision, ou cette position de la France, c'est aussi un appel aux autorités iraniennes à libérer les prisonniers qui, par dizaines de milliers, ont été jetés dans les prisons du régime, à mettre fin aux exécutions qui poursuivent la répression qui fut la plus violente de l'histoire contemporaine de l'Iran, à rétablir l'accès aux communications et à Internet et à rendre au peuple iranien la capacité à décider pour lui-même.
At least 6,373 people have been killed in the protests, according to activists. The Guard, born of Iran's 1979 revolution, operates in parallel to the regular forces and wields vast economic power.
Dear colleagues, dear friends.
The changes in the relationship between Europe and the United States are structural, not temporary. EU High Representative Kaja Kallas has warned on Wednesday against the dangers of outsourcing security in a new age of coercive power politics. Her remarks come on the heels of US President Donald Trump's attempt to seize Greenland from Denmark through punitive tariffs, an unprecedented dispute that brought the nearly 80-year-old transatlantic alliance to the brink of collapse.
Arguably, the biggest change in the fundamental reorientation is going on across the Atlantic, a rethinking that has shaken the transatlantic relationship to its foundation. Let me be very clear. We want strong transatlantic ties. The US will remain Europe's partner and ally, but Europe needs to adapt to new realities. Europe is no longer Washington's primary center of gravity. The shift has been ongoing for a while.
Kallas also presented a bleak overview of the current state of international affairs. She labelled Russia a major security threat, China a long-term challenge, and the Middle East a completely unpredictable region. Since Trump's re-election, the European Union has rolled out several multi-billion initiatives to rapidly boost defense spending, promote its domestic industry, and reduce its deep-rooted reliance on US-made weapons. The bloc has set 2030 as a collective deadline to achieve full defense readiness and deter a potential Russian attack on an EU member state. EU Defence Commissioner Andrius Kubilius has said that he agrees with NATO Chief Mark Rutte that the EU relies on the US for nuclear protections, but that it can and should work towards becoming independent in conventional defence. He was responding to comments made by Rutte on Monday that the EU should keep on dreaming of becoming independent from the US in matters of security and defence.
In one media, I saw that he was speaking about nuclear defense. That Europeans should, stop dreaming about possibility to, to defend itself without American nuclear umbrella. So this is really, I agree with him. For time being, at least, in Commission, we really this is a business for member states to decide what's about nuclear umbrella. But Americans said in a very clear way that they are ready to keep this umbrella, and we are happy with that.
According to Kubilius, conventional defense is the area where Europe needs to be ready to defend itself. A practical example of this is to find a solution to replace up to 100,000 active duty personnel that the US Army currently has stationed throughout Europe. Kubilius insisted that the EU needs to understand what exactly it would need to replace if the US decides to diminish its presence on the European continent. Another question that remains unanswered for the moment is when this would be possible, and to that question the Commissioner admitted he couldn't provide a clear timeline.
French President Emmanuel Macron said on Wednesday that the recent standoff with the U.S. over Greenland served as a, quote, wake-up call for all of Europe. The French leader made the remarks as he hosted the Danish and Greenlandic prime ministers in Paris for a working lunch to discuss the situation and what's to come, now that U.S. President Donald Trump has seemingly backed off. Macron acknowledged the threat that persists in the Arctic and pledged his country's commitment to strengthening the region's defenses.
Face à la posture russe dans le Grand Nord, à la présence économique de la Chine, aux conséquences stratégiques de ce rapprochement, nous partageons la nécessité de renforcer notre posture de défense dans l'Arctique. Plusieurs États européens, dont la France, ont commencé à le faire dans le cadre des exercices conjoints dits Arctic Endurance, à la demande du Danemark.
Danish Premier Mette Frederiksen emphasized that NATO must also increase its capacity in the Arctic.
The three of us agree that this is a priority and that NATO must play a much stronger role in the Arctic region, in the High North, including in and around Greenland, something we have been actually requesting for a long time.
Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen encouraged the cooperation.
Our close cooperation in this situation is not only about Greenland. It goes beyond Greenland. For us, this is about the values in the world, our democracy, respect for international law and order, and integrity.
The meeting comes just days after Trump halted his annexation threats of Greenland, announcing that NATO had agreed to a future Arctic deal. Trump offered few details of the deal, which was brokered with NATO boss Mark Rutte on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum last week, saying they were still being worked out.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer met China's leader Xi Jinping on Thursday in Beijing. Starmer, the first British PM to visit in 8 years, thanked Xi for hosting his delegation. The two nations aim to improve relations after years of tension over spying, Hong Kong and Ukraine. Starmer called for a long-term strategic partnership and brought over 50 business executives.
I made a promise 18 months ago when we were elected into government that I would make Britain face outward again, because, as we all know, events abroad affect everything that happens back in our home countries, from prices on the supermarket shelves to how secure we feel. Our international partnerships help us deliver the security and prosperity the British people deserve. And that is why I've long been clear that the UK and China need a long-term, consistent and comprehensive strategic partnership.
The leaders are expected to sign several agreements later in the day. The trip reflects growing trade needs amid global economic pressures.
New footage emerged revealing Alex Preddy in an altercation with federal agents just 11 days before he was fatally shot by Border Patrol officers. Preddy can be seen yelling at the agents as they drive away. He at one point kicks at the taillight of the vehicle, which causes it to shatter. The move prompts an officer to get out of the car, and he continues to forcefully pin Preddy to the ground. Some agents join him while others direct themselves at the onlooking crowd. It is unclear whether Preddy manages to break free or if the agents let go as he scurries away. At some point in the video, Preddy turns his back to the camera, which reveals he is carrying a gun in his waistband. At no point in the video does he reach for the weapon. Bystanders yell at the officers to go before the agents set off tear gas canisters and eventually withdraw.
Just go!
As the officers drive away, a man approaches to ask Preddy if he is okay. Preddy confirms that he is and then turns to ask others if they are safe.
I'm okay. Are we all okay? Are we all safe? We okay?
The Department of Homeland Security said it is reviewing the footage. Preddy's killing comes weeks after another U.S. citizen, Renee Good, was shot by immigration agents in Minneapolis while seated in her car. The 2 deaths sparked widespread anger and criticism over Trump's immigration crackdown. On Wednesday, hundreds joined a vigil to honor Preddy.
It was him, but it could have been any of us. I mean, he was trying to help someone, and that's kind of what we're all about, what we're always trying to do.
Similar vigils also took place in other cities, including in Washington, D.C.
Belarus became the latest country to join US President Donald Trump's Board of Peace initiative. In a statement on X, the Board of Peace said it welcomes Belarus as a founding member of our growing international organization. It is unclear whether Minsk paid the $1 billion fee to secure permanent membership for Belarus. The Belarusian Foreign Ministry said in a statement last week Minsk was prepared to take an active role in shaping a new architecture of global and regional security. More than 20 countries have agreed to join Donald Trump's Board of Peace. The initiative has expanded beyond its original remit of overseeing the Gaza ceasefire to what Trump describes as broader conflict mediation. EU sanctions have been imposed on President Alexander Lukashenko's government following the disputed 2020 presidential election and violent crackdown on protesters and dissidents. Further measures were introduced after the country allowed Russia to use its territory to launch its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in early 2022.